Hello, welcome to Story Glimpse, the second show from the House of Story Medics. I'm Marcus V. Calvert, militant storyteller.
I'm Weston Kincade, horror and mystery author.
And he has brought an interesting tale for you today. Please begin.
Today's story is titled Night Market. Nick was never one to get caught up in scuffles, fights, and the like. In his day job, he ordered his employees around, assigned annual development targets, and oversaw daily projects. It was business, and he was fortunate not to get much pushback. It enabled he and his wife to vacation in the off-season. That's how they wound up in Cleveland, Ohio. It wasn't anything particularly eventful. For some reason, Jessica was set on attending their Asian night market. We could have just flown to China, he thought with disgust. Everything would have been traditional, except for the inordinate amount of toys and trinkets the Chinese export everywhere. Nick growled inwardly. One place is as good as the next, I guess, he mumbled, giving in and stepping past the plastic road barriers that cordoned off the street from traffic. Jessica squeezed his hand comfortingly. It'll be okay, Nick. Just give it a chance. Trust me, the food is great. Her pace quickened, dragging Nick behind her. Red, 10-foot camping canopies lined both sides of the street. Shirt vendors, artists, crafters, and food peddlers inhabited every one, and lines from two particular food vendors extended down the block. Jessica didn't hesitate. Gripping Nick's hand tighter and weaving through human traffic, she stopped at the end of the longest line. Really? You aren't going to look around first? No, that's not needed. I'll do that after. This is the one I get every year. She rose onto her tiptoes and pointed ahead. They even have the squid legs I love so much. Nick's head fell to his chest, Whitebeard flattening against his red flannel shirt. He remembered her last venture this way a few months back. She'd returned with the worst breath imaginable. Something in the seasonings. But there was no helping it now. At least he finally knew the source. Jessica turned loving eyes on him, tilted his Outback hat up, and rose onto her toes once more to kiss his forehead. Thanks for coming with me. Nick harumphed, but got out. 'Twas nothing. Ahead was an open parking lot circled by a chain-link fence. Inside, an 80s cover band was making use of the stage and rocking out. There were also 3 food trucks and more canopies with snow cones and other sorted desserts. Shaking his head, Nick said, Well, I'm not waiting in this line. I'll grab some seats. And 2 beers, please. Jessica pointed at the pavilion across from them. The line to the Great Lakes Brewing Company's location had died down. He smiled. He'd grown fond of their beer, especially the Christmas ale. That I can do. Pale ale? Of course, she replied. You know me so well. I had better after so many years, he said after a moment's pause. Jessica's eyes widened. Don't you dare tell me you've forgotten how long we've been married. Nick strolled across the street, mumbling nonsense and waving. That had been a little too close for comfort. If he'd answered her, he'd likely have wound up in the doghouse for the rest of the year. But they'd been married more than long enough for him to know the signs. She wouldn't have let him even leave the house without supervision. The things we do for love, he muttered. What was that? Asked the beer vendor behind an L of plastic tables. On top of each were coolers fitted with large beer taps. Oh, nothing, said Nick. But that's a grand idea. He pointed a pudgy hand at the orange and red coolers. Gotta do what you gotta do, right? What can I get for you, big fella? Nick placed the order and a few minutes later was settling into the plastic fold-out seats at one of the many cafeteria tables arranged in the middle of the parking lot. The street market was well attended. People of all sorts wandered through the area, joking, dancing, even singing to their own melody. It was like organized chaos. Something about it appealed to Nick, but he also knew better. These places were common targets for ne'er-do-wells. As though summoned at the thought, someone bumped into Nick and nearly toppled him over. The big man glanced back, icy blue eyes delving into the depths of the raven-haired teenager who had drunkenly assaulted him. Excuse me, sir, she intoned, her voice wavering. Were you sitting there? Nick was growing irritated. He always prided himself on his patience, but this had crossed a line. Yes, by chance I was. Still am, in fact. He ground his teeth, but turned back around and stared ahead at the stage, where a modern rendition of Love Bites was underway. Another body impacted him, sending his face and glasses into the table. He'd even felt a hand pressing down on his hat. He stood up to his full height of 6'3" and turned to stare down at yet another teenager. "So sorry," the Asian boy said, then turned to his friends and laughed. Nick grabbed the boy by the front of his Punisher t-shirt and pulled him close. "If you or your friends ever touch me again," he ground out, "you will regret it." This didn't seem to faze the boy. He grinned maniacally, glanced wildly at his friends a few times, then somehow weaseled out of Nick's grip. He began breakdancing to a tune no one else seemed to hear. "Must be on something," Nick decided. "Louder," he said. "Just stop. Leave me alone," then turned back to his seats. When the third of the 5 teenagers practically fell over him, Nick had had enough. In the cloudless night sky, winds began to change. Dark clouds rolled in from nowhere, and invisible lightning crackled overhead with the intensity of Nick's icy glare. All 5 teenagers stared up at him, this time with real fear. It was in this moment of truth and honesty that Nick saw through the glamour to the true nature of these kids, if you could call them that. Really, it was just a charade. A simple spell to disguise their kind from normal humans. Too bad Nick was no normal human. Removing his Australian Outback hat, the favorite of his vacation disguises, he gave it a flourish. A few sparks of magic flew, and in its place was a red velvet bag lined with soft white fur. The raven-haired girl and her Asian friend disappeared at the first sight of magic, while the others looked on in awe. Nick, or St. Nicholas, as his friends knew him, couldn't let them leave unhindered, though. With a snap of his fingers and a twitch of his nose, their glamour spells were destroyed. In their places were 2 hunchbacked demons with taut skin that revealed their entire bone structure. "Oh no, Nick, don't! Don't, Nick!" came Jessica's voice from afar, but it was too late. Nick was too far into his fury. Snowflakes fell and grew larger until held the size of golf balls. Snowflakes fell and grew larger until a hell the size of golf balls slammed into the tables and chairs. It erupted into true chaos as people ran for cover, using anything they could to shield their heads. The band ran beneath their expensive electric guitars, searching for shelter. Ice balls tore through canopies, wrecked grills, and even laid a few people out on the asphalt. Unaware of Jessica's words as she ran to him, the weather continued to batter the street fair. Winds picked up. Chairs began tumbling across the pavement, collecting against the chain-link fence. "Ah, sticking around for more," Nick chortled. "I don't think we've met. I'm Kris Kringle, or St. Nicholas if you prefer." He winked. The smallest of the 3, a boy no more than 13 according to the glamour, raised a timid hand. The action caught Nick off guard, forcing his rage to settle momentarily. "Go on." In a voice that had yet to deepen, the boy asked, "If you're a saint, does that mean you can't hurt us?" St. Nicholas guffawed. "Not in the least, but you're cute enough that I might let you go." In answer, the boy's wavering grin faded, replaced by cold viciousness and determination. He leapt forward, grabbing Nick's beard and hanging on for dear life. "I've never," Nick spluttered, unable to finish. Pain etched itself onto his wide face as the boy grappled for more purchase. He was too short to reach the ground, and all of his weight hung from Nick's facial hair. Reaching into his velvet bag, he pulled out a large lump of coal and proceeded to ram it down the little demon's throat. A moment later, the awful creature had released its hold. "Enough," he declared as the last 2 monsters circled, now seemingly unafraid. "We'll see how long you last against this." Reaching once more into his bag, he pulled a life-size lime green inflatable rocking giraffe from its depths. He set it down gently between them with a subtle grin. "Ready for this?" When it first appeared, the 2 miscreants nearly fell into laughing fits, but when Nick's knowing gaze didn't change, the humor left their faces. Although a bit dim-witted, these two weren't stupid. The large green giraffe began to rock on of its own accord. Jessica's eyes widened when she saw it, while the two teens stood staring, unsure whether to fight or flee. When she reached her husband, 2 orders of squid on a stick held aloft in the sleet and snow, she wrapped her free hand around his large gut and shoved a spicy squid tentacle into his mouth. You know better than to cast in front of humans, she chided. Eat this! Turning to the mischievous demons, her loving grin vanished. Jessica reached out and grabbed the invisible tail of the second girl in the group. She squealed with pain as Jessica clenched down on it. The tail was their most sensitive part, and she would end this before an all-out magic battle broke out. It was going to be hard enough to cover this fiasco. A bit of holly dust would not be near enough. She gave the girl's tail a jerk. She squealed while her partner stood watching, remaining nearby as if uncertain what to do. Jessica jerked the demon's tail again until their eyes met. Do you know who I am? Without a word, the girl nodded and sniffled. Then you know better than to come back here ever again, right? Another nod. Then get! Jessica released the demon, and the two remaining sped into the night. Ah, Jess, you have always got to ruin my fun, whined Nick as the clouds overhead dissipated. Within minutes, the weather had returned to normal, leaving only devastation as a testament that it had been. She glared at her husband. Nicholas, put that thing away! A minute more, and we would have the world's largest piñata fest. You know that thing eats humans too, don't you? Do they? He asked sheepishly. Maybe I should go with the inflatable lion next time. Jessica smacked the large man's shoulder, enough to hurt. He winced. Don't test me. This was my vacation getaway. You chose the last place, and now this trip is ruined. I really don't know what to do with you. Grabbing the bag from his hand, she stalked off, spouting frustrations. Go find your own way home. I need some time to think. Oh no, I've done it now, Nick grumbled, kicking a small rock. It skittered a few feet into the drive, which popped. Small winged gargoyles flew up from it, searching for a meal. Spotting him, they swarmed. With the realization of what he'd done, and that Jessica had his magic Christmas bag, Nick broke into a lumbering run, repeating, crap, crap, crap. The end.
Oh, wow. I knew it was Santa Claus when you said beard and red flannel.
Yeah,
and I was waiting for the clues.
Yeah.
You gave off the hints. Where did that come from?
Actually, I was at the night market about a week ago, and some guy tried to start a fight with me, some drunk guy, because I wouldn't let him take my wife's seat.
Your description of the night market,
that's what inspired it.
It's pretty good description, pretty spot on. I think you might have lost it in the whole chaos thing, considering the fact that he has an image as a saint. Unless you immediately discount it, whatever he needs to do, it needs to be subtle. And
Gotcha.
What I recommend is you look at every funky reference of Santa Claus and then do something else. Like, for example, there was a Christmas episode of The Tick where he actually had Elven Secret Service. Right? So it's been done. But what if he just snaps his fingers and Krampus goes out of nowhere and says, dispatch them? Maybe it's been done. I don't know. Or maybe he starts to say something and then Jessica goes, hold my bag. And then she pulls out some brass knuckles and it just turns into a melee. Or if you're going to do that, seeing as he delivers presents to billions of little kids, maybe it just freezes time. Because what you have is a natural disaster, FEMA-worthy, where you should have police cars and fire engines swarming in, or trying to.
Well, this has happened so quickly that that's not even.
You would have first responders starting to show up downtown, though.
Yeah, they would. Yeah, because at least the location of it would dictate that, because it's too close.
Now, if he selectively freezes time, he's got all day.
And what just occurred to me, though, he's Santa Claus. He knows each of their names.
Oh, and here's another six.
So I need to kind of work that in somehow, maybe, because at this point they're all just vague miscreants, you know.
Yeah, what kind of demons? What are they about? And you can't call it the naughty list, although that would be tempting.
Oh,
it's probably been done.
Yeah, but they're demons, not humans, so I'm not sure that they'd actually make it to the naughty list because they're
And what are
expected
demons
to be that way, right?
And what are demons doing in Cleveland? I am not bad mouthing Cleveland. It's a fun place.
Who says they're not in every city?
Hey, quit waving your hand back there. How about this? What if
Depends on your world.
What if coal's a fascinating weapon? Like, you jam coal down a demon's throat and it actually explodes inside a demon. Something about coal makes them go boom.
Yeah, that would be good.
Like a furnace or a cannon shot. And all he really does is just put coal in their mouths and watches them explode. This is why I put coal in your socks. Protection in case you come down the chimney, because some kids are so bad, they become you. Maybe they started off as naughty kids, and because they weren't grabbed fast enough, they become...
Could be.
Food
yeah,
for thought.
that's potential.
You describe it well. The pace is good. The action, if it's going to be over the top like that, I think the only thing I would recommend you cutting out is a giraffe. Gargoyle transition. Little weird, but it can work. But he needs to stop time or account for innocent civilians being hurt, first responders, maybe someone shooting him.
Yeah,
security might come running out going...
The gentleness side of Saint Nick, I guess.
And account for the outside world. Now, if he's going to go in a rage like that, it has to be that the missus dies. Or something god awful happens. He sees a little kid get killed by a demon. Something has to snap.
Oh yeah.
If the motive is right, then he goes biblical. Otherwise, he's surgical. He reaches into that. He snaps his fingers. Who knows? Maybe a big sword. Oh, sword's been done. Santa Claus, the barbarian dude. But
yeah, that's one of my old stories.
Try the different variants. See which one sticks. But your start was good and solid. Your middle's good and solid. Your end is a little weird. Coming from me. From me.
I am getting known for writing weird stuff too, but
and that's not a bad thing. Because again, he has a legend and he has a story that's different, and he can put them together and make something quite worthy. And that's one of the tricks to writing tales. Well,
and this would be, like we were talking about earlier, would be a great example of a Christmas-themed story. Even though it's not on Christmas, it's still, the whole thing's about Santa Claus and his wife.
Basically,
you could go with like a Christmas theme anthology if you were submitting to
basically to explain a theme. If you're going to do a theme on something, mention it throughout in a clever way without trashing the story.
Right.
Which can be tricky. If you just do it at a few points, it's not enough to get past publication barriers or past that. What do they call that trash heap that editors throw stories in?
The submission pile.
Thank you. You want to get it out of the submission pile, then that's one thing.
Well, in the submission pile, you're just a number.
Afraid we're out of time. Gotta go. Thank you. And I am Marcus V. Calvert, militant storyteller.
Weston Kincade, horror and mystery author. Please remember to subscribe and join us next time by clicking the bell.
And there will be more stories, possibly stranger than this one. And thank you for your time, and till next time.
See you later.